We'll now proceed with the 5-minute rule with questions. I'm going to defer mine to the end and recognize Mr. Biggs of Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Nobles, thank you again for being here. Thank all the witnesses, but thank you for your poignant testimony. I think of Steve Ronnebeck, whose son Grant was murdered as he worked at a convenience store in Mesa, Arizona, by an illegal alien. Or Marianne Mendoza, whose son Brandon, as a police officer, was killed by an illegal alien in Mesa, Arizona. Our heart goes out to you, Mrs. Nobles. I'm stunned that a witness would say we need to find equilibrium at a time when 6 million plus people have illegally entered the country in the last 2 years. I'm stunned. I'm stunned to know that of 32,000 people, 21,000 of them were released into the country over a 72 to 96-hour period. I'm stunned because we don't have control of our border. The CBP Chief Ortiz has testified that the cartels control our border, as has Sector Chief Modlin of the Tucson sector, as has Sector Chief Chavez of the Rio Grande Valley sector. I'll go to you, Chief Scott. Has Secretary Mayorkas taken the actions necessary and appropriate to achieve and maintain operational control of the borders?
Absolutely not, sir. If you listen to the words he states every time, it's about creating safe pathways. When I was chief, we were not allowed to even discuss consequences or actually securing the border. It was all about expediting the processing and avoiding the optics of people backed up into Border Patrol stations.
We've heard today about new parole processes being implemented. Last year, over 300,000 people received parole. This year, it'll be over 750,000. Prior to the Biden administration, typically you might see 15 to 20, maybe 20, as high as 25 parole processes. That's because that's an individual process. Even Secretary Mayorkas has testified before this committee that it's an individual process. What has he done to distort the parole process, Chief Scott?
I honestly do not understand how they can look at the law and do what they're currently doing with the parole process. By law, every one of those approvals is supposed to be a case-by-case basis. It's supposed to be based on humanitarian reason or a benefit to the United States government. In my entire time in the Border Patrol, I probably approved, and I'm estimating, about 6 or 8 paroles a year at the most, and those were usually to benefit a case or because of some type of a medical condition. But there were tight restrictions put on every one of those. As probably a packet about 1 inch thick about keeping track of the individual. Because the concept of parole is you're allowing someone into the United States that we know does not have a legal right to be here. They haven't proven it. So we're accepting risk on behalf of all of America. That's a heavy burden. We all took that very seriously. I do not believe the Border Patrol can be doing today the legal assessment required for each individual case. It's just not possible.
Chief Scott, DHS officials, and I'm quoting now from a New York Times piece, say thousands of migrants are successfully using CBP-1 instead of paying smugglers, close quote. Are we to believe that CBP-1 is an alternative to cartel smuggling, or are we actually using CBP-1 to facilitate cartel smuggling?
There's CBP-1 app is, from my understanding, is basically a queuing mechanism like we used to do at ports of entry with a pen and paper on the south side. Anything that happens on the south side of that border is definitely controlled or influenced heavily by the cartel. Anything we can do to get them out of the system would be fine, but I think the piece that we're missing here too is we're now taking away from the legal, trade, and travel processes of the CBP officers at those ports of entry. They were all gainfully employed prior, and the CBP One app is pushing more and more people into that port of entry that don't have, by definition, do not have a legal right to be here. The other challenge is it's a magnet. Because to use the CBP One app, again, from my understanding, you have to be in Mexico, you have to be up close to the border. So that entices even more people into that border community, and the throughput does not match the demand. And where does that overage go? Right back to the cartels.
Thank you. My time's expired.
Chair now recognizes